All right, let's get into it. We're going to tackle a problem that pretty much every on-call engineer knows way too well, that never-ending stream of alerts. We're going to talk about how you can shift from a world where you're constantly putting out fires to one where your alerting system actually helps you stop those fires from starting in the first place.
Oh man, this scenario, it is the literal nightmare for anyone working in tech, right? You're doing everything you're supposed to. You set up monitoring, but instead of getting clarity, you just get chaos. It's that awful feeling of being completely overwhelmed by noise, and then the one signal that really mattered just slips right through. That's the problem we're here to solve today.
You see, the thing about bad alerting is that it's not just one problem. It's really a spectrum with two extremes, and both are equally dangerous. I call them the silence and the storm.
So let's break these down. On one side, you've got the silence. This is when your monitoring is so quiet, so incomplete, that your users end up being your alerting system. And, hearing about a problem from an angry customer is never a good look. But then you have the other side, the storm. This is just a constant, deafening roar of notifications that makes it totally impossible to find the real emergencies. Either way, the result is the same. You're just not effective when it counts.
So what's the first thing most of us do when we're faced with the silence? Well, we jump into our tools, like Grafana, and we start making alerts. And it feels good, right? It feels like we're making progress. Let's take a look at what that's like.
So creating an alert in Grafana is actually pretty easy, maybe a little too easy. First, you write a query, with something like PromQL, to figure out your service's error rate. Second, you set a condition. For example, fire an alert if the error rate goes over 5% and stays there for 5 minutes. That for duration is so important. It's what keeps you from getting paged for every tiny little blip. Third, you pick where it goes, a Slack channel, an email, and finally you add some labels and notes so the alert actually makes sense. It all seems very straightforward.
And just like that, you've done it. You've got a pipeline. The second that error rate crosses your line, a message pops up in Slack. You've beaten the silence. You feel safer. But you might have just walked straight into the arms of the storm.
And that brings us to this quiet killer of on-call teams everywhere, alert fatigue. This is what happens when you have the best intentions, but maybe not the best strategy.
It's really important to get what alert fatigue actually is. It isn't just about getting a lot of notifications. It's a psychological thing. It's your brain becoming desensitized. When almost every alert is just noise, your brain learns to ignore all of them, even the critical ones. You start to hesitate, you second-guess everything, or worse, you just hit mute.
Let's put some numbers to this because it's kind of terrifying. Picture a typical day for someone on call. Maybe 200 alerts fire, but out of those 200, only 10 actually need someone to do something, and only 2 are real incidents. So that means 190 alerts. That's 95% of everything you saw was just noise. Now imagine trying to find a needle in a haystack that big every single day.
And look, this isn't just some tech problem. This is a real business problem. Alert fatigue leads directly to burnout, which means people leave. Your time to fix things, your MTTR, goes through the roof because your team is busy chasing ghosts. And the most dangerous part? Real, critical problems can get way worse because they're just buried under this mountain of false alarms.
Okay, that was a lot of bad news. But here's the good news. We can absolutely fix this. It's time to stop making noise and start creating a clear, actionable signal.
Now, this is a super important point. The goal is not to have fewer alerts. The goal is to make sure every single alert that wakes a person up matters. And the tool that was literally built for this in the Prometheus world is Alertmanager. Think of it like a smart traffic cop that sits between your alerts and your phone.
Alertmanager has basically 3 superpowers to calm the storm. First up is grouping. Say one thing breaks and causes 100 services to fail. Instead of 100 notifications, grouping them all into one. So much better. Second is inhibition. This is genius. If the entire database is on fire, you don't need 50 more alerts telling you that all the apps connected to it are also having a bad time. Inhibition shuts up all that downstream noise. And third is silencing, which is your manual override. You're doing planned maintenance? Just tell Alertmanager to be quiet for a bit.
But tools are only half the battle. The biggest change you can make is philosophical. It's all summed up in this one brilliant idea from SRE. Alert on symptoms, not causes.
So what does that actually mean? Well, bad alerting focuses on the causes. Things like high CPU. A server CPU could be at 95% for a totally fine reason, like a scheduled job. Waking someone up for that? That's noise. Good alerting focuses on the symptoms, the things that your users are actually feeling.
Things like high latency or a climbing error rate. Those things are almost always bad, and they tell you that a user is having a bad time, which is what you really need to jump on.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one question to think about. Take a really hard look at the alerts your team gets. Are they giving you clear, actionable signals that help you protect your users? Or are they just adding to the noise, burning out your team, and maybe even hiding the real problems? The move from firefighting to real prevention, it all starts with answering that question honestly. Thanks for tuning in.